With the Brazilian Grand Prix qualifying live.
Hello there, good afternoon to you from our London studio. We're 3 hours ahead of them in Brazil, so qualifying will be coming your way in just under half an hour. Conditions over there in Sao Paulo, hot, round about 30 degrees. This morning, Michael Schumacher went quickest in the first session. Ralph just in the second, but only just ahead of Coulthard and Jenson Button. Very encouraging, that. Tony Jardine is with me. Let's talk about David Coulthard. Head smacking for him in Malaysia. Since then, he's celebrated his 31st birthday, and something to celebrate so far this weekend as well.
Yeah, a trouble-free start, which he hasn't had so far this year. Let's not forget the winner last year. He made a great move like Montoya did on Schumacher last year, but he feels they've made a step forward with this McLaren Mercedes since Malaysia, which is very good news indeed. They've worked very hard at Stuttgart, they've worked very hard back in Northampton at Ilmore. And Michael Schumacher has said, McLaren, watch them here. And
Michael Schumacher, watch him in the new Ferrari motor.
This is quite a car. It is revolutionary. It is not a development. And as you can see, they are still developing it, getting the setup sorted out over the bumpy Interlagos track. It has a revolutionary transmission just being put to test there by Michael Schumacher. And this is where it's being suggested could be its Achilles heel, where it could be vulnerable. I mean, that's what the competitors are hoping. But it is a very, very different car. Watch out for that.
Good. OK, then let's say it's the third round of the championship, and Michael Schumacher hasn't stormed clear this time. Just a couple of points in front of Montoya, second in Australia and Malaysia. Ralph 4 behind Big Brother, behind Raikkonen. Irvine perseveres with the new Jaguar, and Button determined to be the best British driver this season. So, after 2 Grand Prix in the old motor, Ferrari finally roll out the 2002 model at Interlagos. Michael Schumacher gets one, but not Sao Paulo's finest, Rubens Barrichello. Ted Kravitz has more.
Being on the wrong end of a Williams 1-2 in Malaysia stung Ferrari and forced the issue as to when they would debut their new car. Ralf Schumacher, on his one-stop strategy, would have beaten his brother even if Michael hadn't have clashed with Juan Montoya at the start. So a faster car was a must here in Brazil, a track where Michelin has the edge over Ferrari's Bridgestone tyres and where BMW Williams is especially strong. But can the new car make the difference?
It is quicker. It is going to reduce the margin. Whether it will reduce the margin enough for us to win here, I don't really know until I see how the tyres perform. But I guess it was a bit of a no-lose situation in the sense that we thought we were going to be perhaps a slightly weaker position on the tyres here with the heat, and we thought we'd give it a try.
We have aerodynamic changes in particular to the car. It looks quite different. We believe that's the better solution for us. We have a different gearbox in it and obviously an improved version of engine power. So this is the main difference. But again, I don't know if that is enough.
Ferrari have allocated just one of the new cars to Michael Schumacher. Rubens Barrichello will race the slower but more reliable old car.
This decision was fairly late, so it just was logistically impossible to bring more than one car. And so there was only opportunity for one car. Michael's leading the championship, so that was the decision.
Well, for sure I would have liked to have it here. But, for a decision taken by Ferrari, I don't have it. It's not that I'm less motivated because I have a less fast car. No, I'm going to enjoy myself.
Rubens will get to use the new car at Imola. Meanwhile, in Michael's hands, it has been instantly impressive, but only qualifying will tell us if it's ultimately quick enough.
Basically, we feel confident. I mean, more confident than we had been before, obviously. We have had a good test in Barcelona. We covered 2 race distances without problem. We had 1 day with a problem. We believe we fixed that, and we feel it's the right moment.
How tough is that on Rubens Barrichello?
It is a very tough decision indeed, but I'm sure that Michael Schumacher has forced that through and said, look, we must take the new car. It is a logistical nightmare. 2 cars, 2 sets of spares, 2 sets of tyres, very, very difficult for them.
They say it's the best Ferrari ever. Michael Schumacher going very well earlier today, but just pipped at the end by Ralph.
Yeah, I mean, it's great for Ralph, but it's also very encouraging for this new Ferrari. It's at the beginning of the development. There's the man who won in Malaysia, who said the car was perfect, the more rubber that went down. And Irvine is suggesting that the big hard man battle at the front between Michael Schumacher and Juan Pablo Montoya, Ralph could pick up the pieces.
Thank you, Tony. 1:13.5 Ralph's time this morning.
Luciano, we've just seen some pictures of that horrendous accident in Spa. How difficult was it for you to get back in the car again after that?
Well, first of all, I need to see the pictures as well, because I don't remember anything. From inside the car, the only thing I remember is the start of the race. But after that, I have to say that it was quite easy to go back, because, like I said, the bad part of it, which was the accident, lucky enough I don't remember anything. So when I got back to drive, I wasn't scared, I had no bad feelings, so it was quite normal, let's say.
You're back in your new role as Ferrari test driver. You've obviously played a crucial part in developing this new car. Can you just tell us very briefly, how much quicker is it than last year's car?
It's difficult to say because, of course, you change tracks and you cannot say the difference. But, you know, for sure, the main thing, we know that it's quicker. That's the main thing. And let's hope that it's on pole position today.
Thanks, Lid.
Thank you.
We'll see. There'll be huge support for the home drivers in Brazil. They'll be watching Bernaldi in the arrows, Barrichello, of course, and Felipe Massa at 20, the youngest F1 pilot, Sao Paulo born, proud possessor of a World Championship point after driving his Sauber to 6th place at Sepang. Here's Louise again.
They say driving a Formula One car is like the ultimate roller coaster ride, so I guess it makes sense that 2 of the youngest drivers in the pit lane are preparing for this weekend's Grand Prix by visiting a theme park. Being a Grand Prix driver definitely has its perks. The park on the outskirts of Sao Paulo was opened exclusively to guests of the Sauber pair, Nick Heidfeld and Felipe Massa. It's the first time that Massa's returned to his native Brazil since he made his Formula One debut, and it was a perfect homecoming for the 20-year-old.
We are here just for fun, and there's a friend, family, and a lot of people that I know.
Do you miss them?
Sometimes, yes, of course. So we travel quite a lot, and I think it's difficult to forget these things, you know. So I'm young, and sometimes, of course, I miss.
Massa grew up in a racing household, and he set his sights on a career in Formula One at a very early age.
My father raced just for fun. He gave me a go-kart, and after that I started to race, and it's amazing, the adrenaline, you know, the speed of the cars, all the categories with engine. I think is really nice.
Are you surprised in any way that you're in Formula One so young? Do you sort of wake up on Sunday on race day and think, my goodness?
Of course I'm surprised. So in my head was always my dream, maybe arrive in Formula One day, but it was really quick, and of course I'm surprised.
Brazil has produced 3 world champions. Only Britain can claim more. Racing is a passion in this corner of Latin America.
Whole Brazilian people love quite a lot Formula One, so about Senna, Piquet and Emerson in the past, and also now about Rubens and other Brazilian drivers. Brazil is very famous in the Formula One, and also me when I was young, I was amazing to see the Formula One on the track, on the television, and I think it's difficult to explain, but Brazil is like that.
What's it been like coming back to Sao Paulo for the first time as a Grand Prix driver?
I think it's a dream for the Brazilian driver. So I'm in my 3rd race and in my home. So I think of course it's amazing. It's very nice, but each race is different, and I'm always gonna do my best in every race.
Felipe Massa hardly looks old enough to drive, let alone in Formula One. 10 minutes away from the start of qualifying in Brazil. We had an all-Schumacher front row at Interlagos last year. This weekend, though, the stewards have been given new teeth, and some of the teams aren't at all happy about that. Let's get more from Ted Kravitz.
Yes, Jim, it was after a big meeting in Paris last week that the FIA introduced a number of rule changes. Now, some are to increase safety and some are to cut costs. The big changes come into effect in 2004, but there are some that are in force already. As of this weekend, any driver involved in a race incident can be bumped 10 places down the grid at the next race by the stewards. And starting in 2004, each driver will be limited to just one engine all weekend. They can currently use as many as they want. If you have to change your engine, tough luck. Again, you'll lose those 10 places on the grid. It's been pushed through as a way to save a lot of money in a difficult climate, but has been met with a mixed response.
Well, maybe I'm a bit old-fashioned, but I just feel operating without a spare engine is a bit like going to work without your trousers or travelling the world without a spare passport. It's an old habit of having backup.
And the costs were spiralling, and very shortly we were going to see introduced qualifying engines that were going to do 30 and 40 kilometres just for the Saturday afternoon. And the development and the cost in implementing such an engine is horrific.
You will always spend the money you have, right? And clearly the leading teams do have very large budgets, and they'll continue to spend it. If they don't spend it on engines, they'll spend it on something else. So it's just the economics of it. But for some of the other teams lower down the grid who can't even get an engine, it could be a lifesaver.
A little bit more thought, I think, a little bit more consultation would, I think, achieve a better result. But that's behind us now anyway, so we must get on with whatever we have.
Yeah, that 10-place drop will be a decision you'll make. You know, you could make a conscious decision to drop 10 places to do something strategically or tactically. So it'll be another facet of Formula One.
So that's how the teams have reacted to the new rules. But there's one change which has caught the drivers' attention, and that's the regulation giving the stewards the power to move them 10 places down the grid if they're deemed to have caused an avoidable accident. Not surprisingly, there are a number of differing opinions as to whether the new regulation is a good thing.
I have been spending 2 races in front of television because I have been penalised for something, and I feel better to race 10 positions from the back than not at all.
If you're going to be taken out of the grid, you might as well just be put back completely at the back, or just have a drive-through during the race or something. I don't know. That's a strange one, just 10 places.
We never had a problem with the penalties. What we had a problem with was the consistency of judgment. You know, Barrichello was clearly to blame in Australia. Nothing was done, and Montoya, for the life of me, I can't see what he did wrong. And he gets penalised, so there's where the issue lies, not the actual penalty.
The men who meted out Montoya's punishment in Malaysia were selected at random from an international pool. The 3 stewards are different at each Grand Prix. The drivers would prefer a different approach.
I would try to get the same stewards to every race. The biggest problem we got is trying to get some consistency in the stewards.
Consistency they want, Tony, that's right, isn't it?
I think it's not just that. I think the stewards need to have a driving standards advisor with them up there in the control box. They have it in Indy racing, like Wally Dallenbach. They could do it in Formula One and get a Derek Warwick or a Jean Alesi up there. They've been in the cockpit before and they can make really educated decisions.
Is it a bit severe, though, pushing them back 10 places?
Well, I think it's much better than having them serve out a 2-race ban. Then the fans still see their stars, and then we get them coming from the back through the field. Far more exciting in my book.
OK.
Sunny, Interlagos. Track temperature at the moment is 43 degrees, and that's warmer than it was in Kuala Lumpur 2 weeks ago. It's red hot, and so is the competition. I feel good about this session. Very good. The circuit's been spruced up. Interlagos looks much better than it has for many years. Money has been spent. No danger of any advertising hoardings falling down on the track, as we saw a couple of years ago. Not a huge crowd here this weekend. Brazilians a little bit subdued, possibly feeling that Rubens Barrichello, their man, has been given second-class treatment by Ferrari, not given the 2002 car this weekend. We'll see. We should have still plenty to shout about because it's going to be a very, very close qualifying session. So is the new 2002 car the boost that Michael Schumacher had hoped for? Well, this morning he was only 0.3 of a second faster than his teammate in the old car, and he was certainly trailing the Michelin teams, particularly Williams. But Michael didn't use any new tyres this morning, and the indicators are that he will be really right there in the hunt for pole position. So who else is looking good? Well, this team is. R03 there, just doing a few warm-up exercises. Renault, very strong this morning. Button, third fastest. Trulli, fourth fastest. And also benefiting from Michelin's expertise. This man here, though, has been pretty much the pace setter this morning, and he really is gunning for his second pole position during his Formula One career. 4 times a winner, Ralf Schumacher, but only 2 times on pole. But if this lot have anything to say about it, it'll be Juan Pablo Montoya. That's the Colombian contingent here, almost outnumbering the Brazilians in the stand in front of where Martin and I are speaking to you from, just opposite the pit lane. And they are really, really vocal in their support for Juan Pablo Montoya. Also looking better, the McLaren team, just putting a few final adjustments to the bottom of one of the cars there. They're stronger here than they've been in Kuala Lumpur or Australia so far this season. And David Coulthard, we heard from just before, looking for a strong qualifying session. A couple of bits of information you need to know. As a result of infringements during practice sessions, where they jumped red lights, pit lane red lights, both Takuma Sato and Rubens Barrichello will lose their fastest qualifying time of the afternoon. So whatever their best time is, they'll lose that. So they need to get 2 very competitive laps here this afternoon if they want to keep the kind of grid position that they are worthy of. Martin, as always, it's close here. Last year we saw 1/10 of a second separating the top 6 cars. Will we see the same thing again today, do you think?
I think we certainly will. We haven't seen Michael Schumacher's full potential yet. As you said, he used 1 new set of tyres all day so far, and just 3/10 from the ultimate pace this morning. But I think it's going to be about a 1 minute 13.0 for pole position. It makes sense because last year here a new pole record was set of 1:13.78. But they didn't have traction control then. It hadn't come in until the Spanish Grand Prix. And I think they've clearly made improvements on the cars, more power, more grip. So we're surprised that we haven't really seen a big advantage, although it is very, very hot, as you've already pointed out. So I'm expecting some spectacular low 1 minute 13s, and I think Michael Schumacher will be right in the hunt, as will Ralf Schumacher. Curiously, Montoya can't quite hook it up in the middle sector. Somebody said to me just half an hour ago that I think he expected to come here and blow everybody away. He was so fast here last year in the Grand Prix until he was taken out by Verstappen's arrows. And it's almost like he's trying a little bit too hard. That was one theory, but for whatever reason, Juan Pablo Montoya has not got the Williams hooked up. There's Rubens Barrichello, the man, as you pointed out, who has already got a penalty for this qualifying session, which is 4 minutes underway now. No cars on the track.
He's got another penalty in a way, which is a psychological one, hasn't he, really, Martin? To come here in the old car, there's only 1 new car available for Michael Schumacher. He must feel like a second-class citizen in that team. It's always been implied rather than stated, but today really has been stated, hasn't it?
I assume that when they were choosing which driver would get the new Ferrari, they tossed a double-headed 1 Deutschmark coin or something. Not that they're in circulation any longer, but it was always clear, of course, Michael was going to get that car. It has given them logistical problems, of course, as Ted pointed out at the beginning of the show when he did the article about Ferrari marking up a lot of tyres for Michael Schumacher. The wheels don't fit from one car to the other, and a lot of other pieces will be the same. So they've had to fly out, and they're effectively operating as 2 teams, I would imagine. But of course, they've only got 1 car here. So if there's a first corner incident that Michael's involved in, there's a restart, or he has a problem this afternoon, he's got to jump into the old car, but that's not too shabby, is it?
No, they brought a record 70 mechanics. You can see some of them there in the Ferrari garage. 70 people looking after the 4 cars this weekend. They brought the same 3 cars that they had in the opening 2 races of the season, and of course that new 2002 car as well. Let's get down to the pit lane and hear from Louise.
I'm just going to have a quick word with Patrick Head, actually. Patrick, one of your drivers looking very strong this morning, but Juan Pablo was a bit off form. Was there a reason for that?
No, he had a problem when he ran new tyres. I think he had traffic the first time, and the second time he left his braking a little bit late going up in the top there, I think. So I think he's reasonably confident for the afternoon.
Could we be seeing a Williams 1-2?
I think that's a little bit optimistic, but I think we'll be right up there.
What's your take on the situation down at Ferrari, Michael, having effectively double the amount of tyres anybody else has got?
Well, I believe that situation has slightly changed, but it's certainly... I think it'll go straightforwardly, and they'll run in the new car and only use 4 sets of tyres. So.
How's it changed?
I think a few discussions with the FIA maybe, but it was never a big problem.
Thanks, Patrick. Good luck this afternoon.
Thanks.
Yes, and there's been lots of discussions, haven't there, around the back of the garages with the team bosses this last few weekends, really. Not least, of course, for the regulation changes they're talking about. I mean, so many of the teams have been changing engines for this next 1 hour, just 12 laps they'll be carrying out. You know, something around 30 miles with a fresh engine. Lots of problems. They won't be doing that in 2004, James.
No, it's interesting to note. I mean, from 2004 onwards, they will be allowed only one engine per driver through the weekend. But I can tell you at the moment, with this new 2002 Ferrari, for example, they bought 3 engines this weekend. As you look at Coulthard coming into the McLaren garage there behind his team boss, Ron Dennis. And they've got 8 engines for the other 3 cars. So typically, a driver can get through 3 or sometimes even 4 engines in a Grand Prix weekend if he has a blow-up. It's not uncommon to see that. So that's the scale of the reduction that they've been talking about for 2004. And basically, at the moment, you're asking an engine, a race engine, to do about 300, 350 kilometres. A qualifying engine, possibly only 150. So they wind it up, give it a bit more horsepower out of it. But in the future, these engines are going to have to do 750 kilometres or something like that and be reliable, and that's why it's a cost saving, because the engines will be less powerful and therefore less stressed.
Yes, but the bad news is, as you're looking at a very relaxed Rubens Barrichello, somewhat more relaxed than I thought he would be given his penalty and the fact that he's not been super on the pace this weekend. But the bad news about that new one-engine deal, unless they put some kind of testing ban with it, we could see teams running hardly at all on the Friday and Saturday of a Grand Prix. If they do, they'll run at heavily reduced revs, and I don't think we'll have a real look at what the cars are doing. I think it's going to be boring for us. So that's the downside of if we force the teams to save their engine up for qualifying and, of course, especially for the race.
There's all sorts of pitfalls with the new rules. I think the fine detail has yet to be written, and that will make some very interesting reading. We're looking, though, at Alex Young, the first man out on the circuit, with 8.5 minutes of this qualifying session gone in the Minardi Asia Tech, and come down to earth now after their first 2 races, where Mark Webber in his home country and then Alex Young in his home country were fated by the locals. Now it's back to business in Brazil, at the back of the grid, struggling to try and get on terms with the teams in front. A little bit of a twitch for Alex Young, and this car powered by the Asia Tech engine. And interestingly, Asia Tech came clean last week and said that they do have ambitions to run their own Formula 1 team in the future. It is very much what they want to do. A lot of the personnel in that team are ex-Peugeot engineers, so they do know what they're doing when it comes to building engines, but building a chassis is a different matter.
You don't get those vibes in the paddock, though, James. The vibes are more, maybe 1 or 2 more teams will bite the dust yet, and there's a slightly scary negative feeling about the economy in general and how it's going to impact on Formula 1 as new sponsorship deals come along. Of course, these things ebb and flow, and many of the old hands in Formula 1 say, we've been here before. You know, it'll happen somehow. Not a bad first lap then for Young, 1:17.8, but that could be well over 4 seconds from pole position.
I think it will be. It's interesting what you're saying there, Martin. Who do you feel is teetering on the brink then, if you're talking about 1 or 2 more teams that are not quite as secure as they might be?
I think that's dangerous territory to head into, naming names. But there is this feeling that teams could start being picked off, and it's a difficult time. I think there's no doubt about it. It is a difficult time. You're seeing sponsorship deals done very late, going on cars late, and talk of we've got 10, 20, 30% less budget than last year. So there's a bit of trouble at Mill.
Certainly the manufacturer-backed teams are the ones feeling the most secure at the moment. Both Williams and McLaren have said that their budget's more or less the same for this season as they were last season. And these new cost-cutting measures certainly can't come into force fast enough for some of the back-of-the-grid teams.
Alex Young drives nicely. This is obviously an in-lap because he's 3 seconds down on his own fastest lap, of course. They'll be doing the usual here, out, 1 flying and in, 4 attempts in the afternoon. Some of the Bridgestone boys may well try to save a set of tyres. The Michelin runners want to scrub theirs down and get some meat off the front grooves as ever. But watching Young out on the track when we were down at turn 2 this morning, James, he's not really committed. He's not at the world-class level that a Formula 1 driver needs to be at. He's good, he's competent, but you don't see that raw skill and aggression that you do from the drivers up at the sharp end. On board then with Alan McNish. He was sensationally fast yesterday, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Third overall, even though that was almost certainly with a low fuel load. Whatever fuel tank capacity had on it, it was a quick time anyway. Today he hasn't shown quite so well.
No, this Toyota really has been a revelation. I must say, in the pre-season previews, there's always a chance of dropping a clanger and saying something you'll regret. And I thought that the Toyotas would struggle a lot more than that. They have done this season, but you can hear the engine being wound up as he climbs the hill, and there's nothing wrong with this Toyota engine at all. It powers them quite often to the fastest straight line speeds in Formula 1. And McNish then starts his flying lap into turn 1, a little bit leery. This is a very tricky section where Martin and I were watching this morning, and the cars seem to buck around there at the back, don't they?
Yeah, there's a series of ripples that really work the suspension hard, just as the drivers are getting on the power, that then compresses the suspension back down again. And as you can see, with really just 2 corners out of the way and a straight, he is a half a second up on Alex Young's best first sector time. But it was a reasonable one. It was about 4/10 off the ultimate pace for McNish's first sector. And if he can hook it up, taking lots and lots of curb there into Pignorino, looks neat and tidy. And one thing I did notice about Alan's driving style, he's very aggressive on and off the throttle. Either that or the Toyota doesn't have a smooth transition of power. And of course, you can talk about max horsepower all day long. It's can you put it on the racetrack that really matters. How is that power delivered? Is it a nice linear torque that enables the driver to just sweep the throttle pedal around rather than stab it around?
Yes, listen out for the crackling sound of traction control, but this is one circuit where you really do hear the traction control effect as McNish crosses a line of 15.759. Not a bad lap at all. We've had just 13 minutes so far of the qualifying session. That's 46 still to come. It's qualifying at Interlagos. You're looking at Sao Paulo driver Enrique Benoldi in the Arrows, and he's just starting his flying lap at the moment. 3 cars have set times. Alan McNish is fastest on 1:15.759, just ahead of Mark Webber in the Minardi, with Alex Young in the second Minardi in 3rd place.
And then 2 further cars on track. Benoldi you're looking at, and Sato in the Jordan. No big guns yet then. Sato's had a bit of a difficult weekend. His car's had an attraction to the hedge, hasn't it? It's been off the road a bit, and Sato struggling a little bit in his early days of his Grand Prix career. Fast, but a little bit inconsistent. Benoldi is having a reasonable lap, but I don't think it's going to bother McNish's current provisional pole position.
This the Arrows car, powered by the same engine that Jaguar use, and it's a very tidy motor. The problem Arrows have had is a lack of testing going into the season. They didn't do as much as all the other teams, and there is a very feeling around the paddock, certainly amongst the midfield teams, that this car could be a lot faster if they could just do some work on it and spend some more money on the testing. But Enrique Benoldi crosses the line 3rd, slightly disappointing. He was quick in the middle sector of the lap, but not so fast at the first and final sectors. Sato goes through as well. He's beginning his lap, and remind you that Sato will lose his fastest time from qualifying today, so he needs to set 2 quick ones. Here he is then, the man who collided with his own teammate in Kuala Lumpur, poor old Giancarlo Fisichella, going very strongly, and was taken out by his teammate, which is the ultimate no-no in Formula 1. And as Martin was just saying, it's been an awkward, difficult start to his Formula 1 career for Takuma Sato.
I felt a bit sorry for Sato in Malaysia, though. He was on a 2-stopper and had the lighter car. See, oh, and he's gone wide then, and very wide in turn 6. There's a little tiny patch of grass before you go onto the new tarmac runoff area there, and that lap is obviously wasted. So that's 2 of his 4 opportunities. He loses his best one already this afternoon as a penalty for jumping the red light at the end of the pit lane. But hey, in Sao Paulo everybody does that, it seems, jumps red lights. But now he's lost another one with a crucial driving error, and there it is, got up on the curb and Sato then, turn 6, of course, never makes turn 7 properly and realises he has to just throw the lap away. And he's carrying on, nonetheless, to get over the line. He may as well get that experience of how the car is feeling, and maybe he could even be on a 2 flying lap run. I did hear that the Bridgestones will give you a slightly faster time on the second lap, which bodes well for their race tyre, of course. But of course, then you've got to carry a little bit more fuel, and also it means you've got to give up one of your runs for the afternoon. So let's see if Sato's having a go at a double lapper. In fact, he's the fastest man so far down to turn 3. Back then with Frentzen, the man who seems unable to get Formula 1 cars off the line. Remember how many times he failed to get the Jordan off the line. Remember when he was 4th on the grid in the Prost at Spa and he failed to get off the line. And twice so far this year, out of 2 starts, he's failed to get off the line. Why they don't give him a normal clutch and let him just start by himself as we always used to, I don't know, because we saw him practice a start here in Sao Paulo and he didn't get off the line either with his practice start. So major dramas there behind Harold Frentzen. We can't quite understand why it always seems to be his car that has those problems, but quite clearly he has a very, very good chance of taking McNish's provisional pole away, but I think Sato will beat him too. In fact, he does. A 15.296 for Sato then, and Frentzen comes over the line to go 3rd, some half-second adrift.
So with 40 minutes still to go, we've got Sato fastest, 1:15.296 ahead of McNish in 2nd place for Toyota. Then it's Frentzen for Arrows, Webber 4th for Minardi, 5th is Benoldi in the other Arrows, and 6th Young. We've got Mika Salo out on track, Olivier Panis in the BAR out on track as well as Jacques Villeneuve. And you're looking at Olivier Panis attacking the Senna S as one of the 2 Saubers takes to the track as well. Panis a little bit in the shadow of his teammate Villeneuve so far this season. Last year, able to establish himself over the Canadian quite a few times, but you sense that the changes that have taken place at BAR, 50 people laid off, including the chief designer, have really boosted Villeneuve's motivation, and he was driving very hard this morning.
He certainly was, and I thought he spoke sensibly in that ITV interview he did. Salo in the Toyota has gone fastest on a 1:15.044. That is the new target time. Still really no megastars. We're just seeing 2 McLarens making their way out onto the racetrack. So the first of the heavy hitters for the afternoon. I think it's worth getting a reasonable run in early. Track temperatures nailed at 43 degrees centigrade at the moment. Panis, look, over 1/3 of a second away from taking away Salo's provisional pole, and it's very difficult to find 1/3 of a second up that hill. There's barely 1/3 of a second between the lot of them from that last corner, Junkau, over the start-finish line. Panis then goes 3rd, as you can see, and so Salo from Sato in the Jordan, Panis, McNish, Frentzen and Webber make up the top 6.
Heidfeld going strongly, though, in the Sauber. And Sauber, certainly the 4th place team at the moment. You can tell us something about that, Louise.
Heidfeld's actually out in the T car at the moment. They had a bit of a drama just before the start of the session when the team fired up the engine in his race car. It went bang, so they had to switch him across to the T car. It was set up for Felipe Massa. Not too much of a drama because the drivers have a fairly similar setting, but Massa also had a problem this morning, stranded him out on the track, an electrical problem. So it's been not the best of days for the team so far.
I think Raikkonen is also in the spare McLaren. Some problem with his. So I believe he takes over the spare McLaren. No spare car for Coulthard then. They are all on track. Villeneuve managed to put it into 2nd place in the BAR. Salo still on pole position at this time. Raikkonen has been very, very quick in Sector 1, and an ominous sign of blue smoke as he headed through Turn 6, getting on the throttle. Just the merest puff of blue smoke for Kimi Raikkonen, and there he has lost the engine.
Wow. Good spot. Well, on the back of 2 engine failures in the race at Kuala Lumpur, that is not at all what Mercedes-Benz had in mind. Their chief man, Norbert Haug, was very, very apologetic after that. He really fell on his sword, and once again, Mercedes, it looks like, have got engine problems.
He's going to get in the way of the Jaguar driver who unfortunately for Pedro de la Rosa was on a hot lap, but is that Raikkonen up and running again? No, Raikkonen, that's Coulthard then coming to complete his flying lap. This will easily go fastest at this time. Raikkonen does have a problem. It's not to say he had, it's a 14-0 for Coulthard. That's a bit disappointing for his first hot lap of the afternoon. He would want it to have been well into the 1:13. But Raikkonen, we saw that little puff of smoke, some kind of drama, and I believe that's the spare car anyway. So problems at McLaren.
Yes, indeed. That's a big blow for Kimi Raikkonen, but here's a man who's out to prove something. Rubens Barrichello in the 2001 Ferrari. And, well, he was overlooked when it came to the choice of who would drive a 2002 car. Logistically, it was impossible to bring two of them. This is quick, though, from Barrichello. He hasn't shown too much pace so far, but he always seems to be able to extend himself when it comes to qualifying in Sao Paulo, as he crosses the line now and records a 13.935. So the first man to break 1:14 in qualifying, but I think we'll see times a good 8 or 9 tenths of a second slower, faster than that, as the session goes on. We've just got 35 minutes left as we ride on with Rubens. Is he on a slowing down lap, or is he too going for a second flying lap on these Bridgestone tyres?
It sounds like he's swanning along to me. Track temperatures dropped 2 degrees. Coulthard was significantly faster down to the first sector on his in-lap, so we know he's got time in his pocket, and Montoya is on an absolute flyer, and that's Ralf Schumacher. He has just come out onto the racetrack. That is the reconnaissance lap for Ralf Schumacher. We need to see Montoya in the middle sector. Montoya is the man who is absolutely on it at the moment, but he has struggled through the middle part of that lap, so it's the other Williams we need to be having a look at.
Yes, a snorting lap from Juan Montoya, and he really desperate to get himself up on pole position. His middle sector has been reasonably competitive. It's not the fastest we've seen so far, but it is quick, and he's Montoya on target to take provisional pole. But we're riding now with Ralf Schumacher as he starts his first flying lap, and he'll be hoping it'll be faster than whatever Montoya can achieve.
Montoya goes fast. It's a 1:13.554. Ralf Schumacher's already 0.2 of a second up, and that's just in 3 corners and a reasonably short straight. Ralf has looked absolutely supreme here this weekend, riding on a very high confidence level after his great drive, as we said, in Kuala Lumpur. We wondered if Montoya was going to bury this man mentally, but at the moment it's absolutely not happening. Ralf has stepped up to the game.
He always starts the season strongly, though, doesn't he, Ralf? And then tapers off towards the end. That's historically been the way his season has gone. Last year was no exception, which is what led everyone to believe that Montoya would have the upper hand going into the start of the season. But this is Ralf Schumacher re-establishing himself in the team, and this is Ralf Schumacher chasing a second pole position in his Formula One career. He's not really performed when it comes to the pole position quest so far. Is today going to be his day, though? He crosses the line, a 13.328. That's super fast lap, and really Michael Schumacher will be looking at that in the Ferrari. We've yet to see Michael come out. He's the only man who hasn't done a lap, and well, any moment now we're expecting to see the world champion come out. Ted, what can you tell us?
James, just an update on the tyres. They are crucial here at Interlagos. The best information that we have so far is that all the Michelins are on the softer tyre. We know that it works over a 1 lap, and we know that they can do just 1 stop in the race. Ralf Schumacher proved that in Malaysia. But on the Bridgestones, James, the crucial thing is whether Michael Schumacher can use the harder tyre. It's up to about 3.3 seconds slower than the softer tyre over 1 or 2 laps. But if he thinks he can make up that time in the power and the good handling of the new car, then that will suit him very well in the race.
Problem is here, Ted, it's almost like a street circuit. If you're 0.3 of a second slower than you would normally be, you could lose 5 or 6 places on the grid, which will compromise your race, even if you do have a more durable race tyre. That's Barrichello. He is currently 3rd. He will lose his fastest time of the afternoon, whatever that may be, because of jumping the red light, as will Sato in the Jordan, who is currently running 11th. So an all BMW Williams front row at the moment. We've yet to see time from Raikkonen, because he had a technical problem on his flying lap, and Jenson Button is now into a flying lap, as is Jarno Trulli in the 2nd Renault, and that of course is Michael Schumacher on the warm-up lap, and I think he could be popping in a low 13 as well anytime soon.
Let's just talk then as we take our first view of the 2002 Ferrari car. This is it. This is what all the talk has been about. You see how low it is at the back, how the engine cover just drops away under that rear wing. It's a beautiful piece of engineering. They've had to lower the engine. Whoa, what's going on here? No, he's just letting someone go through.
He's letting Trulli through. Trulli locked a wheel behind him and then just let him through.
So anyway, as Jenson Button goes up into 4th place, so the promise he showed this morning is being paid out in the afternoon session. 1:13.973 for Jenson Button. He certainly wants to be best of the rest, but he was trying to be something more than that. As Schumacher winds himself up to come along and start his first flying lap, the first competitive qualifying lap of this new Ferrari into turn 1, dropping down, picking up the speed, 2nd gear, 3rd gear, up to about 100 miles an hour as he goes round the long left-hander and down this back straight, up to about 185 miles an hour down here before he hits the brakes here into Lake Descent corner, and Schumacher 2/10 down on his brother.
Yeah, that's quite a lot, isn't it? Obviously, the middle sector here is longer than the other 2 sectors combined, so there's plenty of time to make up time. But that's quite a lot. Doesn't sound much, does it? 1/4 of a second. But and Michael there really fighting the car hard through Ferradura, Pignorino, lots of traction control working. I don't think it's absolutely quite to his liking. It's working a little bit harder, that steering wheel, than we've seen him work in the 2001 car. So this is going to be a quick lap. Just how stellar, we'll have to wait and see. He has been very quick in the middle sector, but still down a little bit on Ralph, and we know how fast those BMW Williams are on this long uphill haul to the start-finish line. This is probably going to put him 2nd. Can he nick it into provisional pole? No, 2nd indeed. It's just 1/10 of a second between Ralph and Michael. Montoya is a further 10th behind them in 3rd place. Louise, what can you tell us?
I'm standing out watching all the activity in the McLaren garage. As you can imagine, a lot of work going on. I can confirm it was a hydraulic failure for Raikkonen. That's what's caused him the problem. Now, at the moment, the team haven't made a decision as to which car he will go out in again. They're going to try and fix that hydraulics problem. They're also working very hard to change the 3rd car to his settings. So, depending on the situation with the hydraulics problem, he may well go back in his race car, or perhaps he'll have to go out in the spare.
Yes, that makes sense, because the puff of blue smoke was just for a defined period of time. Normally, if you've got an engine problem, you do see a lot more smoke than that, but quite clearly then that little puff of blue was, as the car blew out its hydraulics through a seal or a valve or something, that goes onto the exhaust pipe, trails out the back of the car, and gives you, the impression something is going wrong.
Apologies to Mercedes then for erroneously suspecting that they'd lost another engine. You're looking, though, at Giancarlo Fisichella in the Jordan. Jordan not had the best of starts to the season so far. Fisichella currently lying 11th. And this is his 2nd flying lap of the afternoon. Currently, Ralf Schumacher fastest from Michael Schumacher 2nd. Montoya is 3rd. Barrichello is 4th. Button is 5th. Coulthard is in 6th place. Eddie Irvine is in 7th place for Jaguar. This the team that will get its first new wind tunnel on Tuesday, operational, finally. Only Minardi is still left of the other teams that don't have a wind tunnel. And Jaguar starting to turn the corner in terms of morale, starting to turn the corner in terms of employing some better people. And it seems turning the corner in qualifying terms as well. Massa 8th, Salo 9th, Villeneuve 10th. And this is Fisichella trying to get in amongst them.
He's been slightly quicker so far on this lap. He's about to trigger the beam for Sector 2. He's 1.3 down on current pole sitter, but it looks like he could improve on his own time into the 1:14. That would pop him inside the top 10. This Jordan looks like it handles well when you watch it out on the racetrack. The lap times are not coming quite, in fact, it does go 10th, but the lap times are really not falling into place as well as the car looks. I have to say, it looks well balanced, looks like they've got plenty of grip. Just not popping in the lap times.
So who's in trouble this afternoon? Well, we know about Kimi Räikkönen. Louise has just been telling us about his problems. Jarno Trulli is another man who's got some difficulties. He's just gone out, having only set 1 flying lap. He's down in 21st place at the moment. So while his teammate Jenson Button flies high in 5th, Trulli is lost at the moment, down in 21st. Are we looking at David Coulthard currently lying in 6th place, completing his outlap, and this is the beginning of another run for the Scotsman.
Coulthard should really be in the mid-113s at least with this. Neat and tidy through 1. Couldn't really hear if he was flat through 2. Full throttle. The car looks super settled in turn 3, and he'll trigger the first sector beam, and the Ferrari will let him through, no doubt about it. And an 18.7, that's not a bad first sector. It's only the Williams that can beat that. So can David Coulthard do something spectacular through the middle part of the lap? And it's all about commitment at the same time as never snatching a break and never letting the nose run wide in these smaller corners.
There's Coulthard attacking, still looking for his first finish, his first points of the 2002 season. All that promise and that hope and expectation that he carried going into the season has seemingly evaporated so far. This weekend he has to do something. What's he doing in Sector 2?
He missed the apex. He missed the apex of Megullo, and just cost him. He had to run a little bit wide. It then leaves you wrong-footed for the next corner. It cost him a tendency. He managed to just keep it rolling, but it should be into the 13s, but it's not going to threaten the front row of the grid. 4th, he's on the 2nd row. That'll do for now, but there's still plenty more time, I think, left for David Coulthard.
25 minutes then still to go. Ralf Schumacher still fastest. You're looking at Rubens Barrichello, currently in 5th place, and this is his second flying lap of the afternoon. Michael Schumacher is 2nd, Juan Montoya 3rd, Coulthard 4th, Barrichello 5th, Button down to 6th now. Irvine still holding on in 7th place. Massa doing terrifically well in 8th place for Sauber, ahead of Mika Salo in the Toyota, and Giancarlo Fisichella 10th. And we've got Villeneuve 11th, De La Rosa is down in 13th place, and Trulli, I mentioned before, he was down in 21st and struggling, bangs one in. He goes 5th, just ahead of his teammate Jenson Button, who is now down to 7th place.
So if Barrichello beats a 1:13.935, he loses that lap. That's how it works. And every time he does a new faster lap, he will lose that, and then the second one will come into play. So where is he? He did a faster first sector, a slightly scruffy middle sector, and he's half second down, and he can't afford to have a bad lap. He needs every lap to count. He's got to throw one of them in the bin at the end of the day.
Just explain why that is. It's because he jumped some red lights in the pit lane in the practice session. That is a better lap from Rubens Barrichello, so that might well be the one he has to throw away. He has to lose, basically, his fastest lap of the afternoon. That's his penalty for jumping a red light in practice. And Takuma Sato in the Jordan also has the same penalty. He's currently in 14th place on a 1:15.296. So 2 men really struggling as we look down at the man who set the pace this weekend and this afternoon, Ralf Schumacher.
It was a 13.919 for Barrichello, and before he did a 13.935, so it was 200ths faster. So that then is the one that he loses. Montoya is on a hot lap now. Montoya is in the middle sector of the lap. That is not him that we're looking at. And that's Ralf on... That's Ralf having made a mistake on a second flying lap. So 20 seconds down to the end of the first sector. So Ralf has made a mistake somewhere. Montoya has not, and here he is. And again, faster for him. This could put him back on the front row of the grid. All he's got to do now is just turn left a little bit. That's what he's really good at from his IndyCar days. And over the line anytime soon. The car hits the ground really hard over those bumps. And yes, he does indeed. Goes up onto the front row of the grid. A mere 300ths of a second adrift.
We told you it was going to be close, didn't we? First place, 1:13.328. Second place, just a couple of hundredths slower, and then a couple of hundredths slower than that is 3rd place, Michael Schumacher. Ralf Schumacher leads from Montoya, Michael Schumacher 3rd, Coulthard 4th, Trulli 5th, and Barrichello currently 6th. 22 minutes still to go. You're back live at Interlagos, the qualifying hour reaching its dramatic, let's hope, conclusion. 20 minutes still to go. This is Felipe Massa in the Sauber, currently lying in 10th place. We have seen Kimi Raikkonen do a lap, not a particularly clever one, but at least he's back out again in the McLaren after the problems he had earlier on. He is in 8th. And this is Felipe Massa, who, believe it or not, 2 years ago, was a delivery boy delivering pasta to the Renault team here at the Brazilian Grand Prix. Louise told me this, it's a great story. And now 2 years later, he finds himself a point scorer in Formula One at Malaysia and hoofing it round in a Sauber in front of his home crowd.
And a lad with a great future, has to be said. He's really attacking this track. He's enjoying it, isn't he? You can see he's really having fun out there. The car's working nicely. He's currently in 10th place, but he's already faster on this lap so far. Mid-sector coming up, he's faster again than he's been at any other time, so he may just sneak past Irvine in 9th. Raikkonen is in 8th. If he can do a 14.5 or better, Massa will move up to 8th place. And isn't he going on once again ahead of Heidfeld? Yes, indeed he does. So Massa then up onto the 4th row. That is a great drive.
And Peter Sauber, you see in the middle of this group of Sauber, there he is, the bald-headed man in the middle. He's done it again, hasn't he? Last year he found Kimi Raikkonen from seemingly nowhere. And this year he's found Felipe Massa, putting these young hot shoes in his cars, giving him complete confidence, and they're going out doing the business for him at the moment. Olivier Panis, where is he at the moment? Struggling a little bit down in 14th place with the BAR. That's an improvement for him, but it's still only just inside the 1 minute 15 bracket.
Yes, it's popped him up from 19th to 14th, which is something. That put Webber back down to 9th. I thought Webber's done a great job. Actually, he's got himself ahead of both the arrows in the Minardi. So at the moment, Webber managing not to be on the back row of the grid in the Minardi. And there is a great shot then of Michael Schumacher. The steering wheel doesn't seem quite on straight, does it? It's something I hate. It happens so often in Formula One cars. But maybe it's just the camera angle. And you can see then how hard he's working on the steering. Pity we can't watch that for a lot longer, isn't it? That is a wonderful shot of a Grand Prix driver at work. Michael Schumacher with his hands on the reins of the prancing horse. And look, he still can't get down to that turn 4 as fast as the Williams, but it's quicker than he's been at any point so far, James. What's he going to do in the middle sector? And you have to say, we haven't seen the pace from this new 2002 car we expected so far, have we? We were told it's at least a second a lap faster than the 2001 car. That's not been borne out yet, but this does look like a good run through the midfield.
Yes, you can see Schumacher there, and the tyres have got a big part to play in it, I think, because the track temperature so hot, 43 degrees here, and that really is Michelin territory. So the Ferrari a second faster on the tracks they test on in Italy than the old car. Look at it, he's narrowed the gap though. Sector 2 is good for Schumacher, and all he has to do now, as Martin was saying, is turn left and plant his foot on the throttle up to about 190 miles an hour as he rockets up towards the line. Michael Schumacher, no, it's still Williams 1 and 2, and it's Ferrari in 3rd place, and this is not what a lot of people were expecting. A lot of people were expecting that Schumacher was perhaps sandbagging this morning and that he would rocket up into pole. It's not being played out this afternoon.
But stay tuned, Dave. You've got uninterrupted coverage of the final 16.5 minutes of this qualifying session. 41 thousandths of a second cover the top 3. And there's another good fight between 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th, which is covered by no more than a further 10th of a second. So lots of action, and the shape of this grid is absolutely difficult. You cannot decide at this point how this grid's going to look. There's so much going to happen yet.
Not only is it wide open in terms of qualifying position and all the things that could happen now, but it's wide open tomorrow as well in terms of race strategy. There are so many different ways of playing the Brazilian Grand Prix. You can stop once, you can stop twice, you can even stop 3 times, and there's some suspicion that maybe Ferrari, with one or other of their 2 drivers, might well do that. It's wide open, and that's what makes it so exciting. Rubens Barrichello, though, looking for another hot lap. A 13.919, the best he's managed so far, and that's 0.6 of a second slower than his teammate, who's using the new 2002 car. And remember, Barrichello will lose his fastest time, so every single lap counts for Rubens Barrichello. Half a second down on the pace setter Ralf Schumacher at the end of the 2nd sector. And after this, Rubens will have 1 more flying lap to go.
Psychologically, it must be hard, mustn't it, to know you're in the older car, but over the line he goes then with a 13.945. At least he's consistently off the pace, but that means still his 1:13.919 is the one that will disappear. Ted, what can you say?
Martin, hot news from Ferrari, and this will partly explain why Michael didn't take that pole position. he is on the harder Bridgestones, as well as Fisichella in the Jordan and Heidfeld in the Sauber and both Arrows. They obviously feel, Ferrari especially, they've got the speed and it will help them tomorrow.
Yeah, hard though. I mean, it's relative, isn't it? How hard is it? Maybe it's still quite a soft tyre, but if it is giving him a 3/10 disadvantage, then they were predicting, the people that know these things were predicting a 13-0 for pole, and that's about where Michael would be then. But if he can start on the second row of the grid with the harder tyre, then he's in great shape. But listen, he's only got to find 41 thousandths and he's on pole.
It's not much, is it? But let's not get carried away, because Michelin have got a very strong race tyre as well, and there really is nothing to choose between Williams and Ferrari so far. I mean, certainly in Kuala Lumpur there wasn't much to choose, and here there isn't either. It's wide open, this World Championship. It really is so much closer than it was last year, and it's great to see all these drivers in with a shout. We could well have a new world champion this year. It could be Montoya, it could be Ralf Schumacher, and who knows, if David Coulthard can hook that McLaren up, start scoring some points, it could even be him as well.
You saw Fisichella just moving up to 10th place. Ron Dennis staring at the screens. It's not going to change, Ron, till they get out on the racetrack. Currently his cars are 4th and 9th. Raikkonen finally getting a flying lap in. He is in the spare car, but at the moment he's some 1.3 seconds from pole. So Raikkonen needs a run, and down there in 9th place, both McLarens, I think, are capable of going significantly faster. And there then is Coulthard heading out for his 3rd attempt of the afternoon. 13 minutes and 10 seconds remaining.
Currently half a second off the pace though, David Coulthard. It's closer than McLaren have been so far in the first 2 races of the season, and they'll take some comfort from that, but they want to be duking it out with Ferrari and Williams for pole position, and at the moment they just are not quite there. The talk is that the engine is perhaps a little bit down on power compared to the BMW in the back of that Williams car, or the Ferrari engine, and perhaps it's 30 or 40 horsepower, which might account for a little bit of the difference. But certainly the car, nothing wrong with it. A very elegant design by Adrian Newey as Coulthard comes through.
Ralf Schumacher's on a super hot lap. He blew away the final sector fastest time on his out lap. So Ralf Schumacher really on it. Coulthard then deep into turn 1, again hooking up nicely with the curb, taking plenty of curb into car, once again well settled in 3. Ralph's not had a great mid-sector. Montoya's on a stunning first sector. Coulthard is also on a decent one. Nothing special, but not too bad. Montoya has blown away the first sector time. So we've got Ralf Schumacher, Montoya and Coulthard, 1st, 2nd and 4th, all on excellent laps. The first one over the line is Ralf, and he failed to improve by 9 thousandths of a second. So Ralf did not make it work out. He stays on pole position. Montoya has yet to click through the 2nd sector. Coulthard likewise. 2 or 3 corners to go for Coulthard before he's there. Let's keep an eye on Montoya. Montoya not bad through the 2nd sector. It's all going to be very, very tight. Coulthard then is in shape to improve on his 1:13.8, but he needs a full half second faster to get any further places ahead. And Montoya goes on pole position. Montoya 13.114. Coulthard stays 4th, but goes 0.3 faster than his best so far. Juan Pablo Montoya hooks up a beauty.
And the Colombians in front of us in the main grandstand opposite the Williams pit are going bananas. We must have 20 or 30 Colombian flags. This is the closest race of the season to Montoya's home country, and a snorter of a lap from Juan Montoya. He's on pole provisionally with 10 minutes left ahead of his teammate Ralf Schumacher in 2nd place. Michael Schumacher 3rd, Coulthard still 4th, Trulli 5th, 6th is Raikkonen, 7th Barrichello, 8th Jenson Button, who's just gone out to do his 3rd run. Felipe Massa holding on in 9th place, and Eddie Irvine doing a terrific job. We haven't seen him yet this afternoon, but Jaguar have found some pace, and Eddie Irvine is in 11th place.
Yes, and Irvine just slipped back to 11th as you were talking, as Heidfeld improved. I think the Michelins are, not the Heidfeld's on them, but the Michelins are really showing good 1-lap specials this afternoon. Jarno Trulli popped a very good time in there, up into 5th on the grid in the Renault, and isn't the Renault going well? Very much best of the rest, no doubt about it. Della Rosa is up into 10th in so Jaguar 10th and 12th. That's a big turnaround in performance, isn't it?
It is, and considering last week they were testing this car against the old one to see which one was going to be the better one to race for the season. It was a very bleak outlook for Jackie, but they've turned it around certainly. But this man, well, he's really on the up, isn't he? Juan Montoya chasing his 5th pole position of his young Formula 1 career. This is only his 20th Grand Prix weekend. He's already established himself as one of the front runners, and we didn't see a frame of that lap, unfortunately, but it must have been a humdinger.
Yeah, I'm afraid we were having a radio transmission there. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it. If the Brazilian director here doesn't spot these things happening, all I can do, all we can do, is tell you that they're happening out there. But we saw Coulthard improve his time, but stay 4th. But at that time, Montoya really, he's struggled, hasn't he? Through turns 6, 7, 8 and 9, he's looked really clumsy through there. And all of a sudden, he's just calmed down, got it right, hooked it up, and now he's on provisional pole. But I don't think it's all over yet. 9 minutes remaining. You're on board with Felipe Massa. He is currently 11th, and he is on an out lap. So he is heading to cross the beam to start another flying lap. 190 miles an hour. Then look, it's tunnel vision. The walls are high. Look at the black rubber on the track. Gives you so much grip. Cut the curb on the right. Then you can just run around that white line on the left. Just let the car sweep nicely to the outside. 170 miles an hour already. 185 as he gets down to the end. And look how turn 4 falls away from you. Unfortunately, we went off board just before we saw that. 5 is easy flat out now, and 6 is a nice sweeper uphill.
And Jenson Button is going very strongly as well. He's in 8th place at the moment, but he's faster than he has been so far. So plenty of improvements. Massa is quicker than he's been too, and Button goes 6th, just behind his teammate R03. So the 2 Renaults, 5th and 6th. A terrific effort from them. And Jenson Button really going strongly, as is Massa. This is going to be faster than he's been so far, chasing his teammate Heidfeld, who's currently 9th. So the track is getting faster and faster and faster as we have 7 minutes left. And you know how tight it is at the top here. Anything could happen. And even we're seeing Renaults and Saubers in the mix as well. A terrific afternoon's sport here at Interlagos. And it is not over yet as Felipe Massa comes along to cross the line. He stays in 11th place. He had a poor middle sector of the lap.
I think the way it's shaping up for Barrichello, he's done 3 1-minute 13.9s. He's got to throw away the fastest of those, but actually it doesn't affect his position at all because he's not actually had a very good afternoon. He will stay in 8th place at this time.
He's a real confidence driver, isn't he, Rubens Barrichello? I mean, most racing drivers, their confidence is affected one way or another. It's really only people like Montoya and Michael Schumacher who seem always to have that just resilience, total self-confidence all the time. But Rubens really is one who it just swings away from him or swings back.
Yes, his chin does drop a bit, doesn't it? Sometimes we've said that before. I mean, Mansell was another one, wasn't he, who had supreme confidence. There have been drivers over the years where their confidence, you can't dent it. Sometimes it costs them, and others it's just the perfect ingredient. But you're right, Rubens does seem to have a bit of a soft underbelly in that respect. And there's always been so much pressure on him here in Sao Paulo, so much expectation, hasn't there? And he's never quite fully delivered it, with various crashes and incidents, some of them not his fault.
Amazingly, as we watch Mika Salo in the Toyota, who is 10th, that was an improvement for the Toyota, a very strong performance. Amazingly, Rubens Barrichello has had 7 straight retirements here at Interlagos. It's one of the most appalling records he's had. It's certainly his most appalling record anywhere, but it's the most appalling record anybody has at this racetrack. Juan Montoya studies the timing screens. He knows he's got one more run in the bag if he needs it. The threat will come from 2 places this afternoon, in all probability. One of them is this man here, Michael Schumacher, and the other is on the other side of the garage from Montoya, and that's in the shape of Ralf Schumacher. One of these 3 men will take pole position this afternoon. And can Michael Schumacher get himself up onto the front row again? He's dropped down into position 3 at the moment.
This is Michael taking it very, very easy, and now he'll absolutely bolt like a rabbit through the last corner. And he wants to keep those tyres as cool as possible. And now it won't cost him anything, because as he goes over the start-finish line, he'll be up to full speed anyway. And that is how to really get a good start to the lap. The only problem is you've got to be sure you've got enough temperature in those front tyres and not snatch them under braking. No problems then under brake. Comes from very high up into turn 1. Michael super committed in turn 2, as always. The traction control there working overtime, and relatively easy run downhill slightly to turn 4, and he'll trigger the beam. And still, he's been pretty much 2/10 slow down there, hasn't he? All through this qualifying session. Then he makes it up now.
Presumably a lot of that has to do with the horsepower, because that long back straight, the speed across the start-finish line, the BMW carry a higher speed across there, but you can see Michael Schumacher soaring at the wheel, trying to get the car to turn in where he wants it, and there'll be some head-scratching, I think, amongst the Ferrari engineers this evening. He's not far off. We're only talking about nickels and dimes, tenths and hundredths of a second, but he's having to work this car more than expected, and at the moment he's not able to get it on terms with the Williams. But very, very quick as he comes out of the Young Cow corner, and the Mergullo corner, sorry, into the Young Cow and up the hill. Now just a tenth down on Montoya's target time.
I think he ran slightly wide in Young Cow, had to hesitate on the throttle, but it's going to be very close again. I'll be surprised if it beats it for pole, but it has put him on the front row of the grid. So Michael then pops up back onto the front row of the grid for the second time this afternoon. Montoya remains on pole, but that was a decent run up to the line and just found him a 10.
When we saw this shot before, Martin, I couldn't help but notice that his grip on the steering wheel didn't seem... I mean, if I held that steering wheel in one of those things, I'm sure I'd be squeezing it for grim death. But he seemed to have a fairly loose grip on it.
Yeah, you have to drive them. You know, you've got 3 contact points with a Formula 1 car, with any racing car. Your feet on the pedals, your backside in the seat, and your hand on the wheel. And you're getting information from those physical contact points, plus what your eyes are telling you. And if you squeeze the wheel too hard, you're not using it in the way that it's designed to be used, really. It's your friend, it's not your enemy, the steering wheel.
Nicely put. 3 minutes still to go then. Juan Montoya on provisional pole position. Second, Michael Schumacher for Ferrari, sandwiched between the 2 Williamses. Ralf Schumacher third, Coulthard fourth. Trulli is fifth, Button is sixth. The 2 Renaults going extremely well. Raikkonen has managed to make something out of his afternoon after the problems he had at the start with a hydraulic failure in the spare car. He's in 7th place. Rubens Barrichello, well, his dander well and truly down here in Sao Paulo at the moment in 8th. And then it's the Sauber of Nick Heidfeld in 9th, and Toyota, well, what a start to the season they've been having. 10th place at the moment for Mika Salo, and the 2 Jags are still in hunt as well. 11th is De La Rosa, 13th is Irvine.
There are 14 cars that have laps and tyres left for a final run. 2 minutes, 9 seconds remaining. Out goes Coulthard. Out onto the track goes Raikkonen. Out goes De La Rosa. Out goes Jarno Trulli. They are just going to be pouring out of the pits now.
More significantly, out goes Juan Montoya, currently sitting provisional pole position. Well, let's hope we watch him this time. He's already... This is where he had a massive moment last year, do you remember? In qualifying, massively overcommitted through that corner, and it cost him pole position. But today, he's on target. Can he improve on a 1 minute 13.114? Sit back, open another beer, and enjoy the master at work. Juan Montoya starts his final run.
It doesn't come from so high into turn 1 as Michael Schumacher, but it doesn't seem to slow him down, doesn't it? He has been the fastest man down to turn 4. It's a sector of just 18.5 seconds. What's he done this time around? Not good. He's lost a quarter of a second somewhere. Couldn't see where, couldn't see how or why, but the clock never lies. And it'll be something now if he can improve on a 1:13.114, won't it, from losing that quarter second.
It will indeed, but his teammate is the man who can beat him, one of 2 men that can beat him, and he's out on the track at the moment. And we're just waiting to see his first sector time. At the moment, showing on the computer, is not competitive. So possibly, Martin, the track is going away from us. The track temperature's gone up to 45 degrees, and maybe the track has just got slower in the last few minutes.
Yeah, Coulthard, nobody's setting green sectors, nobody's setting faster sectors down to turn 1. Coulthard's there or thereabouts on his lap at the moment. Montoya now 4/10 down. Has the circuit lost a little bit of speed? De La Rosa and Jarno Trulli have both improved their first sector, so maybe the Williams have peaked. Maybe they haven't got anything left. Ralph's done a good middle sector, but not the fastest. There then, over the line, Montoya has finished his lap on a 13.5, his slowest, or one of his slowest of the afternoon. and Ralph goes over the line also on a 13.5. Coulthard is on a hot lap too. We need to pick Coulthard up, not the back of the Williams team at the moment. R03 and Coulthard are the two men on it at the moment. Raikkonen goes 5th.
The session is over, checkered flag. Only the people out on the circuit can still set times. But Coulthard a late improver, and so is Raikkonen. So the track did still have some speed in it. It must be, as Martin said, that the Williamses have peaked, and that's bad news for Ralf Schumacher. He's down in 3rd place, not able to get himself back onto the front row of the grid where he's so desperately wanted. And we've got Montoya, Michael Schumacher and Ralf Schumacher. That is going to be the front 3 going into tomorrow's Grand Prix, with David Coulthard for McLaren in 4th place, ahead of his teammate Kimi Raikkonen. And from where he was 5 minutes into this session, that's a terrific effort from Raikkonen, who pulls off the circuit. And not for the first time this afternoon. Kimi Raikkonen has some technical problems, but he has done superbly well for a young man under enormous pressure to recover and get himself up into 5th place. And also tribute to the Renault team, because Jarno Trulli is 6th and Jenson Button is 7th, and that's a fabulous effort. It's at the expense of Rubens Barrichello, the only one of the top 3 teams' drivers who have failed to perform today. The thumbs up for Raikkonen. I'm not sure he'd regard this as being a particularly good thing for him. But Barrichello 8th, Heidfeld 9th, and Salo in 10th place. So who underperformed today then? Well, you have to say the Arrows weren't particularly clever. Bernoldi down in 21st place, Frentzen 18th. Sato in the Jordan had a poor day today in 19th. The BARs more or less where they've been all season, 15th and 17th. Good show from Toyota though, with Salo in 10th, and from Jaguar. And a great show from Juan Montoya. His 4th pole position in Formula 1, and he's going to take some beating tomorrow, isn't he?
Yes, his 20th Grand Prix, 4 of them from pole. That's not a bad record, is it? So, and you have to say well-deserved, because I wouldn't have put my money necessarily on that, having watched him through this morning, because he really was looking a touch leery in the middle part of the lap. But he's obviously thought about it, changed the setup on the car, and driven beautifully.
There you see confirmation of the final runners. Bernoldi 21st and Jung in 22nd place. It's been close, it's been exciting. Only a few hundredths and tenths of a second separate the top of the grid. This World Championship is wide open, and so is tomorrow's Grand Prix.
Thanks, James, and thanks to Martin as well. Closest to his home Grand Prix, I suppose, Juan Pablo Montoya from Colombia. Lots of his fans there, and right up there on pole.
It's a tremendous performance from him. I mean, when he emerged here last year, he put on such a great manoeuvre when he took the lead from Michael Schumacher, and he would have potentially won the Grand Prix last year. What we've got teed up, though, is a great battle off the line between Michael Schumacher and Juan Pablo Montoya, which we had in Malaysia. So how will that affect the new rules? Will Michael Schumacher do his chop across him? Will Juan Pablo Montoya give way? I doubt it.
Sure. And last year in Brazil, of course, Jos Verstappen rammed into the back of Montoya and denied him victory, didn't he?
Yeah, but teammate Ralf Schumacher got rammed by Barrichello as well. So both the Williamses were out, and they potentially could have been up on the podium.
What conclusions do you draw, Tony, from Michael Schumacher and his brand new Ferrari?
Tremendous potential from this revolutionary car. Great job by Bridgestone with their tyres as well. But Michael, you can never rule him out. I mean, this is a bold and brave decision by Ferrari to bring this new car over here. It's a great shot, isn't it, seeing the world champion at work there as he goes around in the Ferrari 2002, to bring it all this way, so far from home. And if it fails, even on the warm-up tomorrow, and he has to take the spare, well, the spare is the 2001 car.
Ralf Schumacher won in Malaysia for quite a long while. It looks as though we're going to get an all-Williams front row, but Michael just nipped in at the end.
Yeah, Michael did just nip in at the end, and last year it was the brothers alongside each other, and now we have this great potential. But you can never rule out Michael Schumacher, can you? Even though the car is so new, and even though they're having problems with the thing going over the bumps. But then they haven't run the car in these sort of temperatures and these conditions, tropical conditions. If rain comes, of course, that could play into the hands of Michael.
And, of course, David Coulthard, he'll be quite happy with his position on the grid there on the 3rd row.
And Kimi Raikkonen and his teammate as well. Good for both the McLarens. I think it's great for David Coulthard, because it must give him a little bit of hope. After all, first 2 races season, no points on the board whatsoever. He was talking about his World Championship chances fading already. If he can get some points, that will give him hope.
And at one stage, it looks as though Kimi Räikkönen was going to go out of the session altogether, and they pulled things round pretty well, did McLaren, didn't they?
It's amazing from this little Finnish driver. He is quite special. He's been put into the McLaren team, overlooked Heidfeld, who had been a test driver of McLaren previously, and they've had problems seemingly all weekend. He still managed to put one in. That's a mark of a great driver.
Do you think David Coulthard can do it again?
You can't rule him out at this point because lots of things happen in this race. It is a race of attrition, and he should be there or thereabouts.
And encouragement too for Jenson Button. I mean, and Renault, we picked him out beforehand, how well things have been going for that team, and looking very, very promising.
You think that Jenson here in 2000, he got a World Championship point, and he outqualified his teammate, and that was the youngest ever driver to get a World Championship point. Last year, he was towards the back of the grid, and he injured his shoulder, if you remember. My, how things have changed. Here he's towards the front of the grid. Jarno Trulli, let's not forget, he's done a super job to get ahead of Jenson as well. That Renault really going well. Well done to Mike Gascoigne and his design team.
Absolutely. Let's just confirm how they will line up over there at the Brazilian Grand Prix that you can see here on ITV1 tomorrow. Montoya on pole, Michael Schumacher alongside him, Ralf Schumacher third, David Coulthard fourth with Räikkönen right behind. Trulli always qualifies well in the Renault. Button right up there in seventh place. Barrichello driving the last year's Ferrari down there in eighth. They won't like that around at Interlagos. Eddie Irvine 13th and Alan McNish 16th. Just a word about Eddie Irvine and Alan McNish.
Well, two very good efforts from the Brits, but particularly from Jaguar. I mean, we know Toyota's doing very well, but we all want Jaguar to do well, and Irvine and De La Rosa, because they've decided to use the new R03 chassis, and obviously helped by Michelin there, but it's a strong performance, and maybe they can scrape into the points.
And we've been pretty harsh finally about Jaguar so far this season. A bit more encouragement from them from this session.
Yeah, they've got a new managing director in Gunther Steiner. You know, they've got a new aerodynamicist coming on stream as well in Ben Agathangelou, who's formerly at Benetton. So they're looking stronger as they go along. Niki Lauda is quite a stabilising influence there.
Cheers, Tony. We are with you here on ITV1 from 5:20 tomorrow. It really is a lovely time for the race. Highlights at 12:15, and the race is off at 6. What a prospect as well for the Brazilian Grand Prix. Juan Pablo Montoya, close to home. Michael Schumacher alongside him. Don't miss the race. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
If you'd like to know more about Formula One, the website address sponsored by Toyota is itv.com/F1.